I'm Ethan, a botanologist by trade and an avid hiker by passion. One brisk autumn morning, I set out alone on a hiking trail deep in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. The reds, oranges, and yellows of the changing leaves painted a breathtaking natural canvas all around me. As I trudged along the winding path, the fresh mountain air filled my lungs, and the sound of a nearby creek babbling over the rocks was music to my ears. This was my happy place, far away from the noise and chaos of the city, immersed in the tranquil beauty of the great outdoors. At times like this, I could almost forget about the sadness and trauma that had haunted me for the past year. The loss of my wife Abigail in a tragic car accident had left me devastated. Hiking and communing with nature had become my therapy, my escape from the overwhelming grief. As I stopped to take in the view of the rolling green hills in the distance, I noticed an old greenhouse peeking out from between the trees up ahead. I was immediately intrigued. Botanist that I am, I couldn't resist the opportunity to explore an unfamiliar greenhouse, even if it was a bit off the beaten path. Adjusting the straps of my backpack, I picked up my pace and made my way towards the mysterious structure. As I drew closer, I could see that the greenhouse was in a state of significant disrepair. The once pristine glass panels were now cracked and covered in a thick layer of grime. Weeds and vines had taken over, creeping up the sides of the building and partially obscuring the entrance. It was clear that this place had been abandoned for quite some time. My scientific curiosity got better, and I couldn't resist the urge to explore further. I carefully pushed open the creaky old door and stepped inside, my eyes immediately drawn to the fascinating array of plant life that filled the space. Despite its dilapidated state, the teeming with lush, exotic-looking flora. I slowly walked the aisles, gently running my fingers over the peculiar plant's leaves and stems. Many of them were species I had never seen before, and I felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of potentially discovering new botanical wonders. I pulled out my notepad and began jotting down detailed descriptions and sketches, my mind racing with theories and hypotheses. As I delved deeper into the greenhouse, the air grew thick and humid, making breathing difficult. The musty, earthy scent was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but notice an unsettling stillness that permeated the space. The lack of ambient noise, no birds chirping or insects buzzing, was frankly eerie. Despite the increasingly unsettling atmosphere, I pressed on, my scientific curiosity fueling my every step. I came across a particularly strange-looking plant, its broad, waxy leaves and twisted, sinister-looking vines, unlike anything I had ever seen. I leaned in for a closer inspection, my pen poised to capture every intricate detail. Suddenly, the plant seemed to shift and contort before my very eyes. I blinked in disbelief as the vines began to coil and undulate as if the plant were somehow alive and aware of my presence. I stumbled backwards in shock, my heart racing. Had I just imagined that? No, it couldn't be. The movement was unmistakable. Shaking off my surprise, I cautiously approached the plant again, keeping a safe distance. I watched with bated breath as the vines continued twisting and writhing as if the very organism was alive and breathing. "Fascinating," I murmured, scribbling furiously in my notebook. "I've never seen anything like this before." As I continued to observe the peculiar plant, I couldn't shake the growing sense of unease that was creeping up my spine. The air in the greenhouse felt increasingly thick and oppressive, and I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. I glanced around nervously, half expecting to see a pair of sinister eyes peering out from the shadows. Suddenly, a strange rustling sound caught my attention. I whirled around, my eyes frantically scanning the aisles for the source of the noise. My breath caught in my throat as I spotted a dark, ominous shape lurking behind a cluster of towering ferns. I strained my eyes, trying to make out what it was, but the dense foliage obscured my view. Cautiously, I approached the area, my heart pounding in my chest. As I drew closer, the shape seemed to morph and shift, almost as if it were trying to evade my gaze. Mustering up my courage, I reached out a trembling hand and parted the fronds, bracing myself for what I might find. To my utter horror, a pair of glowing reptilian eyes stared back at me, mere inches from my face. I let out a startled yelp and stumbled backwards, nearly tripping over my own feet. "What the?" I gasped, my mind reeling. The creature, whatever it was, remained motionless, its eerie eyes fixed on me with an unsettling intensity. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves, and slowly reached for my camera, determined to document this bizarre encounter. But just as I was about to snap a picture, the creature suddenly lunged forward, its jaws gaping wide. I let out a terrified scream and frantically backpedaled, narrowly avoiding its snapping teeth. Heart racing, I turned and ran, weaving between the towering plants as I desperately searched for the exit. I burst out of the greenhouse, my clothes disheveled and my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't stop running until I was a good distance away, finally collapsing onto a fallen log to catch my breath. What the hell was that thing? I muttered aloud, my hands trembling. As the adrenaline slowly began to subside, a wave of confusion and disbelief washed over me. Had I really just encountered some sort of strange, otherworldly creature lurking in that abandoned greenhouse? It seemed utterly impossible, yet the memory of those eerie, glowing eyes was seared into my mind. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my thoughts racing. Should I go back and investigate further? Or should I just get the hell out of there and put as much distance between myself and that nightmarish place as possible? Ultimately, my scientific curiosity got the better of me. I took a deep breath, steeled my nerves, and headed back towards the greenhouse, determined to uncover the truth. As I cautiously approached the old, dilapidated structure, an unsettling silence hung in the air. The ominous hush was almost deafening, and I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. I paused at the threshold, hesitating for a moment before pushing open the creaky door and stepping back inside. The greenhouse was exactly as I had left it, save for one glaring difference. The strange vine-like plant that had so captivated me earlier was now completely still and motionless. I approached it slowly, running my fingers over the waxy leaves, but there was no sign of the bizarre movement I had witnessed before. Perplexed, I continued my exploration, my eyes darting from one corner of the greenhouse to the next, searching for any sign of the mysterious creature. But the space was eerily empty, save for the oppressive, stifling atmosphere that seemed to weigh down upon me. I was about to give up and head back when a faint rustling sound caught my attention. I whirled around, my heart pounding, and froze as I caught a glimpse of something dark and shadowy disappearing behind a cluster of towering ferns. Mustering my courage, I approached the area cautiously, parting the fronds with a trembling hand. To my dismay, the creature was nowhere to be seen. I let out a frustrated sigh, cursing myself for not being more vigilant. Just as I was about to turn and leave, a sudden movement in my peripheral vision caused me to whirl around once more. And there it was, the creature, lurking in the shadows, its glowing eyes fixed on me with an unsettling intensity. I stared back, transfixed, unable to tear my gaze away. The creature seemed to be studying me, its head tilted to the side in a curious gesture. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end as it slowly began to advance, its movements lithe and graceful. As it drew closer, I was able to make out more of its features. It was roughly humanoid in shape, with a long, slender body and spindly limbs. Its skin was a mottled, greenish-gray color, and its face was a horrifying amalgamation of human and reptilian features. I backed away slowly, my heart racing, but the creature matched my every step, its eerie gaze never wavering. I could feel panic rising within me, my fight-or-flight instincts kicking into overdrive. Just as I was about to make a break for the exit, the creature let out a bone-chilling screech, the sound reverberating through the greenhouse and sending a shiver down my spine. I froze, paralyzed by fear, as the creature lunged forward, its sharp claws outstretched. I braced myself for the impact, squeezing my eyes shut and letting out a terrified scream. But the blow never came. Slowly, I opened my eyes, only to find the creature frozen in mid-leap, its claws mere inches from my face. I stood there, trembling, as the creature remained motionless, its eyes locked on mine. It was as if time had come to a standstill, the air thick with tension and something that I couldn't quite place. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I slowly backed away, never taking my eyes off the creature. It watched me go, its gaze unwavering, until I finally reached the exit and stumbled out into the sunlight. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, my lungs burning and my heart pounding in my chest. I hurled myself into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut behind me and locking it securely. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I slowly backed away, never taking my eyes off the creature. It watched me go, its gaze unwavering, until I finally reached the exit and stumbled out into the sunlight. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, my lungs burning and my heart pounding in my chest. I hurled myself into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut behind me and locking it securely. As the adrenaline began to subside, I sat there, shaking, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had I really just encountered some sort of bizarre, otherworldly creature in that abandoned greenhouse? It seemed impossible, and yet the memory of those eerie, glowing eyes was seared into my mind. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing. Should I go to the authorities? Would they even believe me? Or should I just chalk it up to some sort of hallucination and try to forget the whole thing ever happened? In the end, I decided to keep what I had seen to myself. After all, who would believe the ramblings of a botanist who had ventured too far off the beaten path? I gathered my wits, started the car, and headed home, resolving to put the entire bizarre incident behind me. But as I drove, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I had just brushed up against something truly otherworldly, something that was not of this world. And as the miles ticked by, I couldn't help but wonder if that creature was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next unsuspecting victim. Over the next few weeks, I tried my best to put the incident at the greenhouse out of my mind. I threw myself back into my work, immersing myself in research and spending long hours in the lab. But try as I might, the memory of those eerie, glowing eyes refused to fade. I found myself constantly on edge, jumpy at the slightest unexpected noise or movement. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something was lurking in the shadows, just out of sight. It was driving me to the brink of madness. One night, as I was sitting alone in my apartment, the phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding, before finally answering. "Hello?" There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, and then a voice that sent a chill down my spine. "I know what you saw, Ethan." I froze, my blood turning to ice. "Who is this? How do you know my name?" Another pause. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep your mouth shut about what happened in the greenhouse." My mind raced, 1,000 questions swirling through my head. "What are you talking about? What is going on?" "Listen to me, Ethan," the voice said, its tone deadly serious. "If you value your life, you will never speak of what you saw in that place. Forget it ever happened, do you understand?" I opened my mouth to protest, but the line went dead before I could get a word out. I stood there, the phone trembling in my hand, my mind reeling. What the hell was going on? Who was that person? And how did they know about the strange creature I had encountered? And why were they so desperate to keep me silent about it? I spent the rest of the night pacing my apartment, jumping at every little sound. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the creature, or whatever that thing was out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. The next day, I decided to take a trip back to the greenhouse, determined to get to the bottom of this mystery once and for all. As I approached the dilapidated structure, a sense of dread settled over me. But I steeled my nerves and pushed open the door, stepping back into the oppressive, humid air. The greenhouse was exactly as I had left it, save for one unsettling difference. The strange, vine-like plant that had so captivated me before was now completely withered and dead. I ran my fingers over the brittle leaves, my brow furrowed in confusion. As I continued my exploration, a sudden movement in the shadows caught my eye. I whirled around, my heart racing, and there it was, the creature, its glowing eyes fixed on me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. I froze, my breath caught in my throat, as the creature began to slowly advance, its movements fluid and graceful. I could feel the panic rising within me, my fight-or-flight instincts kicking into overdrive. But just as the creature was about to pounce, a sudden, deafening scream pierced the air, causing it to pause and turn its attention towards the source of the sound. I followed its gaze, and to my horror, I saw a figure, a human figure, scrambling frantically amongst the towering plants. The creature let out a bone-chilling screech and gave chase, its razor-sharp claws outstretched. Without a second thought, I broke into a sprint, my legs pumping as I raced to the aid of the unfortunate soul who had stumbled into this nightmare. As I drew closer, I could make out the figure, a young woman, her clothes disheveled and her face etched with pure terror. I reached her just as the creature was closing in, and without hesitation, I grabbed her by the arm and pulled her behind me, shielding her from the advancing threat. The creature let out a furious hiss, its glowing eyes narrowing as it regarded us with a predatory intensity. "Run!" I shouted, shoving the woman towards the exit. "Get out of here, now!" She didn't need to be told twice, and she took off in a blind panic, her footsteps echoing through the greenhouse. I turned my attention back to the creature, bracing myself for the worst. But just as the creature was about to pounce, a sudden, blinding light flooded the greenhouse, causing it to recoil and let out a pained screech. I shielded my eyes, momentarily blinded, and when my vision finally cleared, the creature was nowhere to be seen. I stood there, my heart pounding, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had the woman somehow managed to escape? And what was that strange, searing light that had driven the creature away? As I made my way out of the greenhouse, I found the woman huddled against a tree, her face buried in her hands. I approached her cautiously, my voice barely above a whisper. "Are you all right?" She looked up, her eyes wide with terror. "What the hell was that thing?" she gasped. "I thought I was going to die." I shook my head at a loss for words. "I wish I knew," I said quietly. "But we need to get out of here now. It's not safe." Without another word, we fled the scene, our footsteps pounding against the earth as we raced back to the safety of the main trail. As we put the greenhouse behind us, I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that this was far from over, that the creature and the mystery surrounding it was still out there, waiting to be unraveled. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more spine-chilling tales. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below and share your scary encounters. Also, consider joining the Fear Frequencies community for exclusive perks and early access to new content. Your support helps us create even more thrilling stories. And if you really enjoyed it, please consider leaving a super thanks.